At some point in our lives, we are all going to feel desperately alone. And we realize that we ain't never alone. Someday, you're gonna have to fight for your marriage. And things get tough. Guess what you do? You fight.
You must be one of Kay's friends. I know Phil ain't got no good-looking friends.
This is my sister.
Well, no, I was just being friendly.
Why don't you be friendly in that direction over there?
Yeah, okay.
So tell me, let's start from the beginning because people have come to know and just absolutely love this family over the years. Tell me how you first met them and when you first decided to say, okay, yeah, I want to take on this project.
So, obviously, I was familiar with the family and the show, and my wife and I had watched a few seasons of it back in the day, and I got brought onto the project from a producer friend of mine, Brittany Yost, who's a producer on the film, and we had known each other from kind of similar faith-based circles, but hadn't worked together before. And she was a big fan of my Paul, Apostle of Christ film with Jim Caviezel and James Faulkner. And turns out the family was as well. So they were open to meeting and chatting about it. And I read a draft of the script that they had, which sort of was a little bit more in the anecdotal kind of Duck Dynasty vein, which was great. It was very funny, had a lot of great elements. But I had just seen, when Brittany had mentioned she was on this project, I had just seen one of Phil's testimonies, what he does at the big church. And he went back into his story. And I just thought, wow, that is really powerful. Somehow I had missed the boat on knowing Phil's kind of the family's kind of origin story and the backstory of just all they'd been through. And so I kind of went back and said, would Phil and Kay, Miss Kay, be open to maybe getting into this side of the story a little bit? And
the original story was not that. It wasn't as raw as what this is.
No, it had a little bit in it, but it didn't really dive deep into that kind of redemptive storyline. And so after talking, meeting Corey and Willie and obviously Phil and Miss Kay, they were just really supportive from the beginning. It really was, if this can help people, then let's do it.
And I love it because I think fans of the show, fans of the family are going to love it. There's all these little Easter eggs that I think, people will be able to notice from the show that they incorporate. I mean, it's just so fun. But I think even people who, don't know much about their story, I think this is going to appeal to everyone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in anything we kind of tackle story-wise, it's always, what's the widest audience this can get to. So we absolutely wanted to, rather than go fully dark or full comedy or something like that, we tried to come up with a balance. And I think you're totally right. I think we had a lot of fun putting those little Easter eggs in, and even during the casting, okay, who's going to play Cy, young Cy, and who's going to play, Miss Kay, and kind of all these quirkiness and personality traits and all these things. They were so fun to kind of, okay, when can we pull out, these kind of classic Duck Dynasty moments and insert them into the past, so people say, oh, of course they were always like this, even growing up. So that was a ton of fun. And I agree with you. I think this is, we were talking a lot too, especially making this really accessible to those that maybe didn't study the family Duck Dynasty series or really track with the family. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a great redemptive piece that I think anybody can enjoy.
Talk a little bit about that, because that seems to be your passion as well. I mean, obviously, working with Jim Caviezel on that film, what I love and what I am just so taken back by is now I think you have so many more people now that are stepping into the scene, that are using their talents and their gifts. And we're putting out now, I say we, like I have anything to do with it. I'm just so happy to promote it, but to use media, to use movies, to use, as a way to share the gospel.
And I think you nailed it when you kind of say, being able to share the gospel in a way that feels authentic, feels I use the words like gritty and raw, but I don't want the audience to feel like, oh, wow, what am I in for here? It really is just kind of exposing, hey, we're all struggling with things. We're all wrestling with our own inner demons and our own things going on. And I think the worst thing we can do as a church and as people of faith is to kind of, sweep that under the rug and say, no, 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 you're fine. You said yes to Jesus. Everything's okay. And so I love stories like this because it just shows us all, hey, look, everybody's struggling. But we actually, everybody in the world is struggling, not just in the church, but we have the truth. We have the answer to it. That's the difference. And so I kind of love these stories that really track with, hey, look, here's the truth of the mess and the grittiness and the rawness of the struggle. But look at this beautiful kind of redemptive piece over here. And then also, I mean, this is the beautiful thing about the Robertsons. Look at the fruit of what's happened since then. Look at the missions they've been on and the ministries they have and just how it's affected. I mean, honestly, you don't want to say something that sounds exaggerated, but I think, really affected the world in such an amazing way that I think it's just going to be encouraging and inspiring. And again, not that sort of leave the theater and say, okay, yeah, that was nice to remind myself that Jesus is real and that, but really hopefully grab a hold of people to say, wow, you're right. Like, look at what Christ did in Phil's life and this family's life. And Christ is doing it in my life. And I got to let go of some things, or I got to look into some things. So sorry. Yes. I get excited thinking about those
Me
elements.
too. Yes. How was it working with Phil and Kay? I mean, were they on the set I mean, I can imagine too, if they weren't envisioning this as the original story that they were telling, I'd imagine it was also at times probably a little painful to maybe revisit some of that stuff as well. I mean, how vocal were they kind of in the production of all of this?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I mean they were super supportive from the very beginning. Corey Robertson and their nephew Zach Dasher were on set every day, so we definitely had a family presence every day to kind of, and it was just amazing because little details of like, oh, hey, like even things like, oh, Phil would probably say it this way, or, Miss K probably actually would say this, like so invaluable. So they were on set every day, and Phil and Miss K absolutely, when they could, were around. But you're right. There's a lot of, it's difficult, I'm sure, when you expose sort of your past and like, oh, those are things I didn't really want to see again and wrestle with again. But again, they just from the beginning, they were so supportive, and really the mandate and the spirit of it all was, if this is going to help people that are going through what I went through or what our family went through, then we got to do it. We got to say it the way it needs to be said, and we got to do it.
Yeah. As you've kind of been sitting on this for a while, waiting for this to come out, it had to have been fun, I'd imagine, to see the success of all these other faith-based films that I feel like is setting the stage for now this one. And there's still a couple more that are coming out by the end of the year. And this is, I mean, 2023 has just been phenomenal. The audience is there and ready. Have you kind of been excited, kind of sitting in the back seat going, okay, I can't wait for the blind to come out. I'm ready.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible to watch. I think it sort of felt like at some point that dam was going to break, right? And things were just going to kind of explode out. And I think the audience, you're totally right. They've almost grown up, right? With sort of this incremental kind of faith, based films and sort of, I think the levels of quality and everything just keeps rising. And I love it because I think I feel there's a shift. Yeah. I feel there's a shift where, and I don't know if it was, out of the struggles of kind of COVID and everybody kind of got, really tired, and they're also wrestling a lot with tons of things out of that. But it does really feel like all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're hungry and we're ready for stories to be told there are stories and we want them told well. And and so I am really excited. I'm really excited about those that have come before us and are coming after us. I just think that bar continues to get pushed up and up and up. And the more, obviously, the more support they get, the more the box office grows. It's just going to be like, great, make more. So it really is an exciting time to be in this space.
Yeah. As you look back on this before we close, what do you think you're most proud of this film? Like, what are you most excited for people to kind of see and kind of digest? Is again, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a little bit for people to process this story, which I think is what you need to be that
Mhm.
powerful.
You know, when Phil and Miss Kay finally sat down to watch the movie, and when they kind of experienced the emotions that you hope the audience experiences, you know, they're laughing, they're crying, they're discussing, you know, like to me that means we nailed it, because if the people that have been through it can say, wow, that's how it went down, you know, I can only imagine what an audience, you know, whether familiar with the story or unfamiliar, will experience. So and like you said, I think it's a film that you can walk away from wanting to talk about with your friends, with your family. I'm hoping it gives, you know, if you've got teenage kids who you're having a little bit of a struggle kind of connecting on the faith, and it's just going through that normal kind of process. I think it's a great film for them to see, so that there's just some really good themes and some raw things that I think will lead to some really interesting discussions and powerful discussions. So if that's what we achieve, then I'm absolutely happy with it.
Well, as you, it's your words. I'm going to go ahead and claim them and say it too. You nailed it. Great job. I cannot wait for people to see this film. And again, I just know it's going to have a long continued success after this. It's going to be one that I think is going to be watched a long time after this. So thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the ride the next couple of weeks. I know you're going to be very busy, but it's going to be fun to see what God is going to do with their story and how he is going to get the glory. So I just thank you for putting your talents and your gifts into this project, because it's going to be worth it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You got to die, and then you need to be born again.